Hi guys, it's Lara. Thanks for watching and welcome back to my channel. Today I will show you how to make easy bralettes. I'm going to show you how to make two versions. So the first version is made of jersey. It has no closure on the back and it's very stretchy, which makes it also very comfortable for sports. The second version is more a lingerie type of bralette. It's made of lace. And this tutorial is also very beginner friendly. I tried to explain everything as detailed as possible so that it would help any of you guys who just started out sewing. So if you want to know how to make these bralettes, then please keep watching. Let's have a look at my sketch here. And I will explain how to make yourself the patterns for the bras that we are going to make together today. So this is a sketch of the first bra, which will be made of jersey. It has two triangles in the front, a base which is just a rectangle folded in the middle, and it has two straps, and this is the back. So you will need certain measurements. Find a point below your boobs in the middle, usually below your nipple, but it should be where your boob ends on the bottom. And then find a point where you want to have the top of the bralette. So usually it's 2 or 3 fingers above your nipple. And now when you connect these two dots, you will have a measurement B, and that's going to be the height of your triangle. And then you will measure below your boobs from the middle of your chest towards the side, and that's going to be the measurement C. And this is going to be the base of your triangle. But I suggest you make it a little bit rounded. And then you will connect the sides, again make them just a little bit rounded, and then you will have to add seam allowance, which I marked around the triangle in green. As for the base, as I said, it's just a rectangle, so you will have to measure the circumference of your chest below your boobs, and that's going to be the measurement A, which is this one. And we want to have a wide elastic band inside of the base because this is going to give you more support. And you will measure the width of your elastic band, which will be the measurement D. And this side will be twice the measurement D. Now you have a rectangle, and again, you have to add everywhere seam allowance. So I marked it again in green. Seam allowance is usually something about ½ inch, usually 1 centimeter. And you will need 4 of these triangles because it's going to be double layered for more visual protection and also for more support. The next thing we will need are the straps. So you measure from here, from the point above your boob that you used for this measurement towards the place a little bit below your scapula, and that should give you this measurement. So let's say it's measurement F. And usually, because I'm personally going to use bias tape for these straps, usually these bias tapes are wide 4 centimeters, which is a little bit over 1½ inches. So if you make this 1½ inches wide, that should do. And you can clearly see the concept. So basically the fabric has been folded so that there's a middle, and the sides were folded so that they would meet in the middle. And then later you will fold the bias tape like so. And you will also need an elastic band for inside of the straps because it's going to be a little bit more stable. So that's how to make the pattern for the first bralette. The triangles for the second bralette will be a little bit different. They will have a seam in the middle, and the seam will be rounded, so it's going to copy the shape of your breasts. So this is going to be the pattern for the triangles, and this measurement together with this measurement will give you C, which is this one. And this is your measurement B, but it has to be curved. And the bigger your boobs are, the rounder your boobs are, the rounder this curve has to be. And then you simply connect the upper point with the bottom, and you will have these two half rounded triangles, and they will be sewn here in the middle. For the rest of the bralette, we will use just lace, so I don't have to explain that. You will see everything in the tutorial. Here we have all parts for my bralette. So we have here these two triangles. always in double layer for more visual protection so that it wouldn't be a see-through. Next we have here the base for the bralette, which is a strip of fabric folded in the middle. I have here also the elastic band that goes inside of the base. I have already measured it on my body and pinned it together just to be sure that I have the right width and don't have to adjust anything later. Then I have here a bias tape, which I'm gonna use for the straps. And this is a bias tape that I bought in a store. So it's basically a strip of fabric where the sides have been folded towards the middle and it's been ironed, which is something you can easily make yourself. Now, normally I would make my bias tape myself. I even have the forms for it, but I didn't have enough of this white jersey and I didn't feel like buying more jersey because this is something I can always use and it's very convenient. But again, you can make this yourself very easily and it will probably end up being less expensive. And then I have here an elastic band, which I will sew around the edges of the triangles. And last but not least, I have here this beige thread. Now I decided to sew through with beige instead of white because I plan on dyeing the bralette to a nude color. I do have a fabric dye at home already, so that's what I'm gonna do later. First, I will be working on the triangles. So I put the triangles together. So we have here on the bottom the right side of the first layer, and here we have the wrong side of the second layer. You could have here also the right side of the second layer. That doesn't matter as long as the right side, once you will be finished, will be the same. So I put a pin on the top so that they would remain in place. And now I'm gonna grab my elastic band and I'm gonna place it a little bit away from the edge, and I'm gonna fold the edge over the elastic band and I will pin it at an angle. And I'm gonna put in a second pin at an angle very close to the first one, and now I will start slightly pulling on the elastic band while pinning it in place, because I want the edge of the bralette to be as stable as possible. And if I would leave it like that, then I would put it on, it would kind of stand away from my body. And when it's a little bit tighter with the elastic band, you see, it will stretch out when you put it on and it will nicely stay in place. So I will continue doing this on both sides. When you reach the top, you don't want the elastic band to go all the way to the top because this would be a little bit too thick, and that's actually the place where we will sew on the straps later. So I cut the elastic a little bit back, and now I will start pinning the elastic in on the other side. And again, I'm just gonna start a little bit lower. I'm gonna put in a pin at an angle and a second one just to secure it, and now I'll do the same like I did on the other side. So I'll slightly pull on the elastic band while pinning it in, and I'll work my way through down to towards the bottom. So here we have the first triangle, so this is the right side, here we have the wrong side, and now I will sew through with stretchy zigzag around both edges. Before you start sewing the elastic in place, you want to align the pieces and you want to make sure that you tightened the sides the same way, because what you don't want to have is one side that's pulled a little bit more together because of the elastic and the other side being a little bit looser. So this looks actually good. So now I can start sewing through. Today I'm sewing on my old sewing machine because there was a minor thing on my new sewing machine, so I'm having it fixed. But this one works just fine. It's not as good as the other one because the stitches won't be as perfect as they turn out on the other machine, but it's okay. So the stitch that I'm using is here number 6, which is a stretchy zigzag. That's this one. And I made it as wide as possible, so the maximum width here is 6. And normally the standard setting is, I think, like 1.5, and I made it a little bit longer, the stitch, because the fabric is very stretchy, so I set it to 2.5. Now the beginning was pretty flat, but now I came to a point where the fabric is a little bit pulled together. So what I have to do here is to pull on the fabric, stretch it a little bit out while sewing, like so. And anytime I come close to a pin, I pull the pin out. Here we go. And then I sew again. Now, and again, pull on the fabric. Take the needle out, the pin, sorry. So here we go. I'm gonna put these a little bit to the side so that they are not in my sewing space. And I will sew all the way through the end. So now I'm pinning the end of the base together. So I will pin it at an angle, and then I will sew the edge through. So here we have the triangles and the base. I have sewn the base together on one side, and I will have the seam on the side of my body. Therefore, I mark the other side with 2 little cuts, one on the top and one on the bottom. And then I folded the piece like so. I aligned the 2 marks with the side seam, and then I made a little cut here on the top so that I knew where the middle of the front was. Now I turned the base to the right side. I clearly know where the middle of the front is because I have here this little cut, and what I will do now is I will pin these triangles in place. So I will align them in the middle where the cut is. So I will put a pin inside at an angle like so, and I'll do the same on the other side. And then the bottom of these triangles is a little bit rounded, so I will align it with the edge of the base, and I will pin it in place. Now the triangles are pinned in place, and I will sew them on with the same stretchy stitch that I have used here. It's kind of like an overlock stitch. That is on this machine number 24, so I'm gonna set the machine to this stitch and make it as wide as possible, so the maximum width is again 6, and I'm gonna make the length to 2.5. And now I will keep the pins in. I will align the side of the sewing foot with this edge. I lower the needle, and then I make sure that everything is straight, that there are no folds on the bottom, and I will start sewing the triangles in. And sometimes you just kind of have to push or pull in order to keep the fabric moving if you have a machine like this. I don't have to do it on my new sewing machine, but this one sometimes needs a little help. So here we have the bralette so far. So this is what it looks like from the inside. Now let's turn it to the right side. So here we have the front, and I'm gonna turn it to the wrong side right now because we will start pinning in the elastic band. So I have here these 2 places where the elastic band has been sewn in place, so I'm just gonna turn it so that I have the nice flat part on the front. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lift here the seam, and I'm gonna place the elastic band so that it's aligned exactly with the seam. Then I'm gonna fold this side over, and I will fold the end and pin it in place like this, so that it's gonna be also pretty from the inside. And I'm gonna put the pin in at an angle, and I will continue doing so around the entire bralette. So I'm done with the front part, and now we move towards the back. So you have to make sure that you fold this top edge as much as it was folded due to the seam, and then you'll be good. So again, just fold the other end towards the edge and keep pinning. And here is what the back looks like. So I'm gonna turn it to the right side. And now I will go to my sewing machine, and I will use the same stitch that I have used here around the edges, which is the stretch zigzag. And again, this machine kind of doesn't keep the stitch nice. On the new machine that I'm having fixed, the stitch would be absolutely perfect, but it will do. So, and here I want to align this edge with the inside of the sewing foot. So there's a little window, and I align the edge of the little window with the very top of the base. Sometimes when you're sewing there will be a little fold, so I always put the needle up and kind of straighten the fabric, and then I continue sewing. Now I have reached the end. What I will do is I will lift the needle up, and I will set the machine to just a regular straight stitch, and I will put the fabric a little bit askew, and I will sew through just a few stitches back and forth, and that's it. One thing I also like doing is to simply tie the thread that's left from the wrong side, because I find it makes it all more secure. If the thread is long enough, what you could do is you could pull it through a needle and stitch it even a couple of times in place, because sometimes these things open after a while and it's just a pain in the ass. Here is our bralette so far. I'm gonna double check if the height is the same. That's gonna be relevant in a minute because we are going to be making the straps. So that's the front. Here we have the straps, or I should say the bias tape for the straps. So what I will do is I will measure first how long the straps are supposed to be. So what I want to have is I want to have the straps sewn in here in place, like so. I think that I want to have the straps so that they will be pinned here in place, and then they will go pretty straight to the bottom again, because that will work with my tank tops the best, because some of the tops that I have are a little bit more open in the back, and if I would have here straps that cross like this in the back, you would see the straps, and that's not what I want. But it's an option. You can also point the straps towards the middle. It always depends on under what you're gonna be wearing your bra. So let's go with the classical solution. And I want the straps to be really stable because this is super stretchy and it would not really do much for what I want. So I will sew inside of the straps the elastic band. So I'm just gonna pin it in place like so. And then I will go to my sewing machine and I will sew through again with this stretch zigzag. And one thing I do is I don't go all the way to the end with the elastic band, again, because I'm gonna be sewing it in, and that would be very many layers, it's just a little bit easier. So here we have the first strap where the elastic is pinned in, so now up to my sewing machine. I have sewn the straps on here on the top with a straight stitch, and then I folded the seam downwards and I have sewn through again with a straight stitch. I had to make the stitch as long as possible because this is pretty thick now, and since it's stretchy, the machine that I have been sewing this on had a little hard time going through and feeding the fabric, but it was alright, it worked at the end. And then what I did was I put the bralette on and I pinned obviously first I pinned the straps in place in the back, then I put the bralette on and I tried a few variations until I was happy with the length of the straps and with the positioning. The best thing you can do is to always try it underneath the things underneath which you want to wear the bralette, because then you can position the straps so that they wouldn't show underneath, let's say, tank tops or some other tops. There is one more thing that I want to do, so I'm going to turn the bralette to the wrong side, and I want to stitch the triangles together a little bit here in the middle, because from my experience then it fits nicer. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm basically using the same thread, since I plan on dyeing the bralette to a beige color anyway, and I'm gonna stitch it together, I'd say like at least half an inch, and then I should be done. Here is what it looks like when I stitch the middle together. And I also wanted to mention the zigzag that I used in the back in order to sew the straps on. That does not obviously look really pretty right now because the bralette is still white, but once I dyed the bralette to a beige color, then the thread will be matching the shade of the bralette, and that's gonna look way better. Here we have the parts for the lace bralette. This time the triangles are made of two parts where the outer edges are straight and the inner edges are rounded. And I pinned one of the triangles already together, and now when I open it you will notice that it is more of a 3D shape instead of just a flat triangle, which is because of the curve in the middle. Then I have here a piece of stretchy lace for the base, and I have here more of a similar stretchy lace that I will use for the straps. Since my breasts are almost flat after my surgery I had this year, this curve will do, but if you have bigger boobs, you will have to make this curve a little bit rounder. And also, if you need the support, which I obviously don't need since my chest is flat, you will need something a little bit stronger than just stretchy lace on the bottom. So I think a very easy way how to create the base would be just grabbing an elastic in the same color that your bralette will be, and what you could do would be to sew 2 rows of the lace on it like so, and then it would be super stretchy, it would look good, and it would give you more support than just the strip of lace like I'm gonna be using. Same goes for the straps, so if you would need straps that would be firmer than what I have here, then you could always sew on the backside of the straps an elastic band. Here is what the lace looked like that I'm using for this bralette. It had a very nice edge, and I used that when I was cutting out the pieces, so I always made sure that the outer edge would have this edging. When you are using lace, you have to keep in mind that it has right and wrong side. Usually the right side is a little bit more structured and the wrong side is usually flat, which is the case here too. So I will make sure that I pin it together the correct way. So I'm gonna pin together also the second triangle, and then I will sew it through with a stretchy overlock stitch. Since I'm at it, I will also pin together the end of the base. Here we have the triangles and the base, so I decided to sew the base on the side together with a straight stitch, and then I folded the seam to one side and I have sewn through with straight stitch, so this is what it looks like. This time I will not be able to cut into the base, so I will mark the other side with a pin, and then again I will fold it so that the seam would overlap with the pin, and I will mark the middle here for the front so that I know where to align the triangles. Now, the triangles, I have sewn them together with stretchy overlock stitch, and then I folded the seam to one side and I have sewn through with stretchy zigzag, and I made sure that they are mirror images, which means the seam is always folded towards the middle. Here you have the straps. I have sewn them on with straight stitch, then I folded the seam downwards and I have sewn through with zigzag. And now I will pin the triangles here to the base. So what I will do is, I have here the pin that marks the middle. I will have them overlap just a little bit. I would say a centimeter, which is something like half an inch. So I will pin this one in place, and then because the bottom of the triangle is rounded, it is wider than half of the front part, so I will have to stretch the base a little bit out, and I want the triangles to go also a little bit over the side, basically as much as I did in the middle, which is about half an inch. So I'll stretch the base out, position the triangles so that the edges are aligned, and pin everything in place, and then I will sew the triangles on with stretchy overlock stitch. So one is already pinned in place. By the way, I pinned it so that when the triangle is facing downwards, that's the same side where I have the bottom edge of the triangle, of the base, sorry. Let's overlap these here again. So I'll pull out the pin and put it in like so. I'm just gonna shortly look at it, how it looks like. That looks good. And then I will continue pinning the other triangle in place. I will again go a little bit over the side, about half an inch. So here's what it looks like when the triangles are pinned in place. The triangles have been sewn in place, and now I folded the triangles upwards and I left the seam facing upwards because this is basically the shape of the base. I hope you can see it because sometimes it's really hard to see black fabrics on the camera. So I fold them upwards and I will pin the seam in place, and then I will sew through with stretchy zigzag. Here is what it looks like when the seam is pinned in place. So here is what the bottom looks like now. And I folded the bralette to the side. And now we will position the pins for the straps. I think that's a position that could work. And I will pin the straps in the way they are now. And I will put the bralette on and see if it fits this way, and if necessary I will make a few adjustments. So I'll put in here 2 pins like so, and the same goes for the other side. And once I will be happy with the position of the straps, then I will sew them on with 2 rows of zigzag, just like I did on my sports bra. And here we have the finished bralette. Now you could obviously use a little bit wider stretchy lace on the bottom, regardless of if you would use the elastic band as well or not. And another thing is I made mine without any closure in the back. but you can always make a closure here in the middle, either some bikini clip or bra closure if you want to buy that, or you could simply have a few of these little plastic snaps. That always works fine. I made myself a second lace bralette, this time in white, and on this one I made the closure in the back with the snap hooks, and it works really great. And honestly, when I compare it with the black lace bra, I find it even a little bit easier to put it on, because if you have no closure, you have to put it on either head first or legs first, and since this lace base is quite narrow, it can be a little tricky. So if you plan on not having any closure on your lace bralette, I highly recommend using a little bit wider lace. It's gonna be definitely easier to put the bralette on. So here we have a variation with wider lace on the bottom. I really like this. This is super comfortable, definitely easier to put on. And I also like the way it looks. And of course you could use a lace that would be even wider on the bottom. I think that could look cute as well. And that is it for today. I hope that you guys found today's video helpful. Thank you all so much for watching. I love you guys so much, and I'm looking forward to seeing you soon with my next project. Bye.